right. So we're on Friday, December 14th, 1883. It's 9 o'clock in the morning in Dakshineshwar in India. It's a very rural village at this point. At this point now, it's almost been absorbed into Calcutta. I mean, it's kind of like our situation with suburbs here. But back then, Dakshineshwar was a very quiet uh, town surrounded by jungle and the river. So it was a very peaceful place. So at 9 o'clock in the morning, Sri Ramakrishna was standing on the southeast veranda near the door to his room, with Ramlal by his side. Rakal and Latu were moving about. M arrived and prostrated himself before the master. Sri Ramakrishna said to him affectionately, "You've come. Ah, that's very good. Today is an auspicious day." It was the day of the Bengali month, the last day of the Bengali month, and the day of the full moon. M was going to spend a few days with the master practicing spiritual discipline. The master had said to him, if an aspirant practices a little spiritual discipline, then someone comes forward to help him. And this is something I wasn't quite aware of when I began this journey of exactly how interactive God through this world is with you when you start digging in and really going for knowing, going for realization. With people recommending a book, or someone writes you an email with a paragraph in it, or you go to a lecture that you didn't want to go to and you made yourself go to, and one of the nuggets that comes from the minister or from the Swami is just right on. It just hits you right in the target. And it's an amazing thing. It's nice to see. It's nice to be encouraged by it and seeing it here with Sri Ramakrishna saying, just as soon as you make a step to go forward, God's going to meet you. You take for every one step you take forward, God comes toward you 10 steps. That's the nature of grace. And so we can really rely on that. And I tell you, as I grow in my spiritual life, as I grow old as a body, and, years of practice accumulate behind me, I just find that intimacy with God can only be about grace. With all the years that I've been working on my faults and trying to polish up my character and get myself into a shiny good person, I have to say that there's not a lot of success in regards to the things that I've been working on, the things that I've thought were important about myself, but the things apparently that the divine has worked out inside, just really moving in and creating a living room of space in there, and just creating an intimate sense with life, with being. And that the divine mother is providing for you, and if you are willing to take a risk, you will be successful in it. It's like I've seen these things, I know these things, just by the reality of them over the last 25 years. And so when you read something like this, if a spiritual aspirant practices a little spiritual discipline, then someone will come forward to help you. So you will find a teacher. You will find someone who will meet you along the way and bring you forward. And if it's not in the form of a person, it will be in the form of some little nugget, that somehow is given to you. Whether it's I've learned things by overhearing a sentence, passing a stranger in the mall. That's one of those things I'm very curious about, because way back in 1983, I was in the Lake Forest Mall in Abilene, Texas. I think it was the Lake Forest Mall. Anyway, I was at the mall in Abilene, Texas, and I heard this couple, an older Indian woman and a younger Indian man, or American man, walking along, and they were talking about how all of the avatars uh, all of the incarnations were the same person. You know, they were having that conversation as they walked by. And at that time in my life, I was in seminary uh, for being a minister, a Christian minister, and I only remember that conversation. It was just that was all I heard. It was like two sentences as they walked by. And being a seminarian school, you know, in school for the ministry, my ears perked up and I got alarmed. I was like, oh my God, what a blasphemy. What a blasphemy. And I sat there. What really bothered me about it is that I could not think of a retaliation for it. No scripture would come to mind that would negate that. And you know, it's stuck as sort of a little hair, you know, ingrown hair in the back of my mind for a good 20 years uh, before it came back up, and now has come to a fruition to where, like, that's one of my fundamental beliefs now, like fundamental understandings of the divine. And at one point it was just words out of a passerby in the mall. You know, it put a seed in there that sat there for a very long time, and one that I couldn't refute. And so it found a place to put its root down. The master had said to M, "You should not eat every day at the guest house of the Kali temple. The guest house is intended to supply free food to monks and to the destitute. Bring your own. Bring your own cook with you." M had accordingly done so. The master arranged a place for the man to cook, and he asked Ramlal to speak to the milkman about milk. A little later, Ramlal began to read from the Adhyatma Ramayana. The master and M listened while he read. Uh, you know, that food, I don't know, the food situation. Indian culture is very strict on guidelines and whatnot around food. So you'll run into quite a few interesting things like this, where someone would actually be expected to bring their own cook to cook their meal, because people were very, very particular about who handled their meal, who handled their food, who cooked their food. They wouldn't eat it if somebody of a caste, a lower caste, had cooked it for them, or if an impure person had cooked it for them, or whatnot. So they're very particular about that. So that's why the master's telling him, and also because M was a householder, he didn't need free food, and so the master's telling him, you know, don't take the food from the temple. It's for people who don't have food or who can't afford it, and bring your own cook and take care of things. So he is, and it's not an unusual request, and it's not out of place. It's not like M would be offended by it. All right, so now they're reading from the Adhyatma Ramayana. And if you haven't read this book, if you haven't read the Ramayana, I so encourage you to read this book. You know, I read it early on when I first joined the monastery. I picked it up out of curiosity. I didn't really know what it was, and read that book. And I was just so thrilled. I mean, it really put me in a great mood, because I had never read or about such noble characters as the people that you meet in the Ramayana. I mean, Rama himself. You know, if when you grow up Christian and the only person that you ever see lifted up like that is Christ, you could get that inspiration from the Bible and from reading his life and be like amazed at his life. And I had never seen that in any other light before. And the first time that I read the Ramayana, the nobility, the humility, the character, the spotless, shining, gorgeous character of Rama in that book. I mean, he says things and responds in ways that are so perfect, and just I was brought to tears several times by him as a character. So anyway, all of that's unimportant. But if you want to read about a great soul, you know, another incarnation of God, another play of the divine when he's come to teach, the life of Rama, spotless, inspiring, amazing, amazingly beautiful person. I really heavily encourage it. Rama had married Sita after breaking the great bow of Shiva. On the way to Ayodhya with his bride, Rama was confronted by the warrior sage Parashurama, who was about to make trouble for him. Parashurama threw a bow at Rama and challenged him to string it. Dasaratha, Rama's father, was seized with fear, but with a smile, Rama took the bow in his left hand and strung it. Then, twanging the bowstring, he fixed an arrow and asked Parashurama where to shoot it. That curbed the pride of the warrior sage because it was a very taut bow, and most men would not have been able to string that bow. And here Rama just does it with one hand, picks it up, twangs it. Where do you want me to shoot it? No problem at all for him. Prostrating himself before Rama, Parashurama worshipped him as the supreme Brahman. As Sri Ramakrishna listened to Parashurama's hymn, he went into a spiritual mood and now and then chanted the name of Rama in his melodious voice. Then the master asked Ramlal to read about Guhaka, and Ramlal read, Guhaka, the pariah, was chief of the untouchables and an intimate friend of Rama. That's really all you need to know right there. That this noble, high-casted royal Rama, that he was good friends with a pariah, someone of very low caste. An intimate friend, it says. When Rama, Sita, and Lakshmana were starting into the forest to redeem Dasaratha's pledge, Guhaka ferried them across the river. Rama embraced Guhaka tenderly and told him he was going to spend 14 years in exile, wearing the bark of trees and eating the herbs, fruits, and roots that grew in the woods. He promised to visit Guhaka again on his way back to Ayodhya after the period of exile was over. The pariah king awaited patiently, but when the 14th year had run out and Rama had not returned, Guhaka lighted a funeral pyre. He was on the point of entering it when Hanuman arrived as Rama's messenger. In the celestial chariot, Rama and Sita soon appeared, and Guhaka's joy was unbounded. Wow, what a scene. After the midday meal, Sri Ramakrishna lay down on his bed to rest. M was seated on the floor. Presently, Dr. Shyama and a few devotees arrived. The master sat up on the bed and began to converse with them. Master, it is by no means necessary for a man always to be engaged in his duties. Actions drop away when one realizes God, as the flower drops itself when the fruit appears, right? And again, this is about that intimacy of our practice with the beloved, that as you get more involved in your practice and more dedicated to your practice, Mother actually makes more room in your life for more practice, for space for you to do that, gives you the time and gives you a life that is helpful to your relationship with the beloved, with the divine. And so Ramakrishna is telling me it's by no means necessary that you work, your 12 hours a day like you're doing. That's not necessary. And it's not totally normal. And as you go along, God will free up your schedule a bit, will give you more space for your practice. He who has realized God no longer performs religious duties such as the Sandhya. In his case, the Sandhya merges in the Gayatri. When that happens, it is enough for a person to repeat just the Gayatri mantra. Then the Gayatri merges into Om. After that, one no longer chants even the Gayatri. It is enough then to simply chant Om. How long should a man practice such devotions as the Sandhya? As long as he does not feel a thrill in his body and shed tears of joy while repeating the name of Rama or of Hari. People worship God to win money or a lawsuit, but that is not good. Right? So he's talking about how our practices change as we grow. These different practices, many of them are cultural and particular to different schools of Hinduism. A daily puja is a common practice where you do a little worship at a home shrine every morning in your own shrine. And we did a class a while back on how to do a puja, a daily puja for those who are interested. And if you are interested in picking up that practice just for yourself, just drop me an email. We can help you get something like that started together. But this would only apply to somebody on that path, within the tradition of that particular tradition of Hinduism. For us, let your guru be your guide. And if you don't have a guru, then let your heart be your guide as to what practices that you are going to be doing. Um, but always have the idea of getting a guru in your mind. A guru is very helpful because you know that your words of guru are not generated by your own ego. So it's always good to have somebody who's outside of your egosphere instead of ecosphere, your egosphere, so that you don't, so that you're not just doing what you like, right? Because doing what you like won't get there. Doing what you like might make things more troublesome for you. So an ego, a guru will be a teacher who's outside of the realm of your ego, and that's very helpful at the beginning until the mind begins to calm a bit. Once we have an interior space that's somewhat calmed down, somewhat peaceful, then you can hear the inner guru. You can hear your own nature, your own conscience moving you in the right direction. But until that time, and even at that time, it's always good to have a guru that you can verify your inspirations with or your experiences with as well, to give you advice on what to do next, on how to tailor your practice as you grow. So the devotee says, well, we find that everyone strives after money. Even Keshav Sen married his daughter to a prince. Master, Keshav's case is quite different. God provides everything for a genuine devotee, even without his making any effort. Okay. That is an incredible sentence right
It's
there.
huge. Right.
It's an incredible sentence. And it's a promise. So you can put your money where your faith is. Look at that sentence there. God provides everything for a genuine devotee, even without his making any effort. Wow. The son of a real king gets his monthly allowance. I am not talking of lawyers and men of that sort who go through suffering in order to earn money and who become slaves of others to that end. I am speaking of a real prince, a true devotee, has no desire. He does not care for money. Money comes to him of itself. The Gita describes such a devotee as content with what comes to him without effort. A good Brahmin, without any personal motive, can accept food even from the house of an untouchable. He does not desire it. It comes of its own accord. You see, this is the state of someone who's really surrendered and also done a lot of internal discernment. So you've taken care of your attachments to money and creature comforts. You don't have a big plan for your success in life, and who you are and what you are is not really your concern, aside from the fact of knowing the truth, of knowing your relationship to the universe that seems to surround you. And so if you are a genuine devotee, meaning that you are renouncing, that you are making your efforts, that you are causing a little discomfort around the edges for the sake of knowing the divine, then he's saying here that God will come in and provide you with everything. Even if even if you're not working, even if you're not, quote, actively deserving it. So it's quite something. He does not desire it. It comes of its own accord. A devotee, sir, how should one live in the world? Master, live in the world like a mudfish lives in the mud. One develops love of God by going away from the world into solitude now and then and meditating on God. After that, one can live in the world unattached. The mud is there, and the fish has to live in it, but its body is not stained by the mud. Such a man can lead the life of a householder in a spirit of detachment. Right? So he's saying that take some time out of your life. The earlier in your life, the better. take a good chunk of time and really go and make an investment in your spiritual life. Go and make an investment where you really put in an effort for some time at discernment and study and doing your practice, doing your meditation in a place that's outside of the sphere of distractions that you might have. Leave your computer and your cell phone at home, and go into a nice little hermitage in the woods somewhere and just sit silently, and you have to be honest with yourself. If you don't have any practice going on at all, probably better to start a practice at home and keep that going for a while before you invest in going out and doing something, something more difficult like this. Because I know experientially that if you go away to do serious practice on your own, and it's the first time and you don't have a strong practice going already of your own, that time can be more harm than good, because you'll be in a place where nothing's distracting your mind. And so all of your attachments will be the first things to come up for you. And so if you've got a lot of attachments and you haven't really discerned your way through them, you don't have any kind of handle on them yet, when you step into these longer retreats or these quiet spaces like that, sometimes that's what comes up. And those guys can be quite mean and very difficult to deal with. So, first get established in your practice. Get one going at home, where you sit down and meditate. The length and number of times is up to you. Traditionally, it's 3 times a day for roughly an hour or so, but that's just depending on who's practicing. So you do what you can do, what you know you can hold on to, and go forward with that. If you've been practicing for a while and you've got that going, Ramakrishna tells you it's imperative for you every now and then to get away from your life and to go into a place of solitude of some kind, whether it's for a day or 2 days or 3 days, that's up to you. But every now and then, get away by yourself and make an investment in your relationship with the divine. Really put in a good weekend of effort, because he's saying what you want to do is get to a place where where you can feel the winds of grace blowing. He says that going after God is like getting in the sailboat, and the beginning's very difficult because you have to get all the stuff in place. And you have to get that sail hoisted and all that work. But once you've got that sail hoisted, you can just sit back with your arm resting on the rudder, and that boat goes forward of its own accord based on grace. And so, this is where we want to get to. So at the beginning, when it's the toughest, when there's the least reward for effort in your spiritual life, do the work and get to a place of steadiness, and let the winds of grace carry you from there. Let them be your inspiration and your joy. And he says, and then at that point, you can live in the world like a mudfish, which means things aren't going to stick to you. Yes, your attachments are there, but you're doing your discernment and you're working your way through them. So they're not winning, as it were. And all the temptations that you're coming up with and the intensity of the office space won't take your mind away from your inner shrine as easily. So that's what he's saying. We want to establish our place of watching life to be from the shrine in the heart, where we know ourselves to be a witness of not just the world, not just our senses, but a witness of our own mind and our own body. And when we've found our identity, that Satchitananda inside, when we begin to experience that glow of love when we sit to do japam or meditation, that's an indication that you're doing fine. It's an indication of keep going in that direction. But try and get to that place as soon as you possibly can, by the grace of God, so that the world can't pull you out, so that every time you sit down to meditate, you don't have to start from ground zero and build it up again. You want to get in a situation where you meditate again before you've drained the battery all the way down, right? And so that takes a little bit of an ongoing practice that sort of spills out of its boundaries in the morning or evening or whenever you're doing it. And it becomes a time when you just, even at work, you're chanting the name of God when you can, and remembering all the time. Even when you're talking to people and doing your work, you're remembering the presence and delighting in it. because it will become one of the greatest delight in your world at some point. But certainly it will be among the greatest loves in your life before too long, for sure. All right. The master noticed that M was listening to his words with great attention. The master looking at M. One can realize God if one feels intense dispassion for worldly things, right? So if things of the senses, things of the mind, and the things that satisfy the body, when you that you can realize God when you feel an intense dispassion. What does that mean? Just an utter lack of interest in them. You just they're not even tempting you anymore. They seem like a bother, right? And when those temptations come up at this point in life that he's talking about, you don't even hardly have to smack them away. They just kind of fly off because nobody's paying any attention to them anyway. So we want to get to that place in our life, and and to where we've discerned and understood that all of our desires is really actually starts with a desire for God, right? But not knowing what that is or how to achieve that or how to get that, we go through our identity with the body and with the senses in order to try and grab those desires for bliss, those desires for unity, those desires for security, the desires for oneness, the desires for safety. All of those attributes of the beloved, of the divine, become our individual desires. And when we seek them through the senses, that's when we are going into what they call avidya, unhelpful action, right? And so what we're trying to do is study our desires through discernment inside until we can see that our desires really are for all the qualities of God, the qualities of the beloved. And then we can stop the quest through the senses and we can begin looking inward to find that divine principle, which is what
the discernment really, when you start to realize that everything is suffering compared to the the bliss of God, and even the things that we thought was pleasure, then they just fall away too, because it just nothing satisfies after that, or you realize how temporary the obsession of the mind is with the material objects, and how they if you really pay attention to how they don't satisfy, that's a big step forward, really.
huge step. Yeah, you're right. There's two things about them. One, they don't last. Nothing lasts, and so you're going to have to work harder the next time to get the same level of pleasure out of it as you did the first time. So that's one thing. The other thing is you begin to understand that they don't actually give you anything, that all of these worldly experiences, going on your favorite vacation, having a beautiful partner, you really find out that the nature of all of these things are distraction. They pull you out of your inner peace and get you involved in the excitement and the whirligig of the world, and they don't give you rest. They don't give you peace. They don't quell that inner need at all. And this is why God, in all of the traditions that He's taught us, tells us to take refuge in me alone. Go to the beloved for all of your needs, all of your help. Don't go to the movies. Don't go grab a drink. Don't go take a toke. Go to God. Go to your beloved. And we're not talking about going to an idea. We're talking about going into the silence of your inner self and closing the door to the mind, closing the door to the body, and just sitting there in the stillness and company of that divine presence, which is the energy that you use to live all of your life, and become acquainted with that inner world. And he says, if you can get that kind of detachment, the winds of grace will go, and such a man then is qualified to lead the life of a householder, which means that the householder path becomes a path. It won't be a place that takes you away from God. It will be a path that takes you toward your divine ideal. So M is listening with great attention. And he says, one can realize God if one feels intense dispassion for worldly things. A man with such dispassion feels that the world is like a forest on fire. He regards his wife and children as a deep well. If he really feels that kind of dispassion, he renounces home and family. It is not enough for him to live in the world in a spirit of detachment. Right? So that's when you know that it's time to become a monk. if that's in your future. You know, when you just see there's nothing here for me. I can't bear to just keep pedaling the stationary bicycle and deluding myself about getting somewhere. And the world, I can't even find the motivation just to do the minimal involvement to keep working and to keep, doing the grind. And when things feel just unbearable, when you just can't imagine doing these things for the rest of your life, it says, well, if he really feels that kind of dispassion, he renounces everything, renounces home and family, because it's not enough for him to just live in the world and do what he can. He wants to throw everything toward it. Lust and greed alone is Maya, right? Lust and greed, which are sourced in the ideas of me and mine, are what is the veil of Maya. It is the reason that you're not experiencing bliss. If you're not, it's the reason that you're not experiencing bliss in this moment. It's because of me, the ideas of me and mine, lust and greed, identity with body, mind. So woman in gold, lust and greed alone is Maya. If Maya is once recognized, it feels ashamed of itself and takes to flight. That is to say, in the light of your awareness, in that divine light, which is the divine principle of what you are, the image of God within you, through your awareness, just your observing, we were talking to somebody about this yesterday, when you see a fault, to discover a fault in yourself, that awareness of the fault is going to be enough to get rid of it. Because that awareness, what he's saying here in a lovely way, that fault will get embarrassed, that it's been seen, that it's been exposed, and it runs away in shame, which means in the light of your own nature, you will, by your nature, throw out things that you recognize as being unhelpful to your pursuit of union with the beloved. Things that are not helpful, things that take you backwards, you will feel that. You'll experience that pull away. You'll feel some pain from these attachments. And when you've come to the point inside through your practice where you recognize that pain and you feel the pull trying to take you out of the shrine, being aware of it will be enough. Now, there is a period in there where the awareness might be there, but your habits run deep. You've been misbehaving for a long time. And so there might be a freight train of energy still pushing you forward, and you find yourself engaging in things that you consciously don't want to, but for some reason you're just not in control, and you're not sure what's going on with that. Well, what's going on with that is that your mind is purifying, but the samskaras, that well-worn track of action is deep in your mind, and the mind is just running in the grooves. And so don't be discouraged. Just keep hold of your discernment, keep seeing with a clear eye, and just go forward. Don't give it any more attention than that. Don't get stressed out. Don't identify with the fault. Don't say that's what I am. Oh, I'm such a fool, or oh, I'm such a lusty person, or oh, I'm such a thief. Whatever the fault might be, do not associate it with an I. Just don't do that much. Recognize it, see it, renounce it, swat it away as best you can, and keep your eyes on God. That's the point. Don't keep your eyes on your faults and worrying about them. Give that to Mother. That's mother's job. She will purify you. It's the mother who changes the dirty diaper. The baby does not have to change his own diaper. And so in this walk with the beloved, walking in that light, having that company of that divinity, of that pure spirit, and an awareness of your being one with that nature will be enough. So once you see that you've got a fault, announce that fault to yourself, see it clearly, and determine, set your course to avoid it, to not do it again. and go forward. But don't give yourself any more hassle than that, even if it's the 10 millionth time that you fall into it. You get up and keep going. Don't trouble yourself. Grace is enough. But be sincere and be earnest. So lust and greed alone is Maya. If Maya is recognized, if that thing which is blocking your ability to see God and everything, when that thing is recognized, it feels ashamed of itself and takes to flight. A man put on a tiger skin and tried to frighten another man, but the latter said, I've recognized you. You're Hari. At that, the man dressed in the skin went away smiling to frighten someone else, right? So that's where you want to get. When you get inside, you feel that lust arise in there before it becomes a thought, because you're very accustomed to the stillness within, right? You're very conscious of the stillness within you, and when you feel something begin to make a dissonant vibration, which is the sure sign that an attachment is activating, at that point it's small and it's powerless, and you can just remind yourself, I'm not the body, or I'm not the mind, and it will be enough. But if you haven't detected it yet and it grows up, it becomes a state of mind. It goes and gets all of its memories of the last good time that you had. And then that keeps repeating in your mind. You get put into a state of mind and you can't see over the edge of that state. And to fight it at that level is very, very, very difficult. So this is why we want to become familiar with the home in the heart, to find that place and to stay there.
It also will jump into the future and start, causing like an anxiety,
Yeah.
If we let that thought of something in the future get away, if we start believing that the future is real and we don't dismiss it as a thought, then it can ramp up in that direction too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Living in the future is exactly right. It causes anxiety, right? Living in the past causes resentment. Regret and resentment, and living in the future causes anxiety. It's the moment that has the peace and the quiet in it. All right. And so once you'll recognize, oh wait, that desire, that thing that looks so sweet in my eye right now, I recognize you. I remember following you. It doesn't lead anywhere. I never got what I wanted there. Move on, right? And you let it go. Now he's just told us that that woman in gold is Maya, and now he's going to make a little correction. He says, but women themselves are the embodiments of Shakti. They are representations of God. They're embodiment of God's power. And so they're even though when he says woman in gold, he's talking to men usually, and then in those times when he says men in gold, that would, if we don't have one of the women that took notes, so we don't have that quote directly, but it is known that he would teach women the same, that men in gold are. And so this is not a thing about women. That's what the point is. All women are the embodiments of Shakti, the power of God. It is the primal power that has become women and appears to us in the form of women. It is said in the Adhyatma Ramayana that Narada and others praised Rama, saying, O Rama, you alone are all that we see as male, and Sita is all that we see as female. You are Indra, and Sita is Indrani. You are Shiva, and Sita is Shivani. You are man, and Sita is woman. What more need I say? You alone exist wherever there is a man, and Sita wherever there is a woman, right? So he's giving us a clue on how to deal with this being when we're identifying as bodies, male and female, and we're having problems with what those bodies and minds desire based on those definitions of ourself. The way to get through that is to understand that God is in all of these, and that it is God who has become woman, and it is God who has become man, and that we look beyond body, right? And we do this by practicing it in ourselves. Once we know ourselves not to be body-mind, then we will naturally assume others are not body-mind. As long as we believe ourselves to be body-mind, then we believe that the desires that arise from that belong to us. And we say, oh, it's my desire. And when we say it's my desire, that makes it very difficult to overcome because you think that you're then having to take something away from yourself. But as you move into that inner space, you know that that is not your desire, that that desire is arising from the body or arising from the mind and is being presented to you. And when you know that it's being presented to you, you know that it is not you because you can't present you with you. You can't present your face to your own face, you know. And so once you know who you are in there, then these things can go away and they leave us alone. And as soon as we start to see those things in the external world, big quotes around external world there, that when we see those things that tempt us, we reframe them as manifestations of God, as little reflections of divinity. And so I have worked through this, especially in the early days. I'm still working through it, of course, like anybody. But in the early days, I started going around and telling mother how nicely dressed she was. I would see a beautiful person and I would say, "Oh wow, Ma, that's a beautiful look for you." Right. And I did it in a playful way, because just to kind of keep my mind, remind myself, oh, it's not wander there too long, not rest there too long. Keep moving in the right direction. Right. And so you see someone beautiful, you compliment God in your heart. Oh, beloved, you're looking quite lovely in that form. Let me move on. Let me realize you in my heart. Right. But keep that awareness within that all beauty is born of the divine presence, right? All love, all attraction is born of the divine presence. And your practice of discernment is to find that name of God that's hidden in all of your desires. And once you know the name of God that is being represented by that desire, you can let go of the object and go straight to the beloved, not have to be fooled. Ramakrishna is talking to the devotees now. And he says, one cannot renounce by a mere wish, right? You're not fully enough in charge. If you were a year old, you wouldn't have you would have some scars from your previous life still in there. But that's what prevents us from being in, why we can't just wish and be changed. It's because of our habits. The thing that makes spiritual life so difficult is one, we're having to learn to use a whole different set of tools to learn that we're not familiar with. But also, we've got this huge running train of samskaras of past experiences that's pushing us in a direction that we've been going for a very long time. And a moving freight train can't make a right turn, a right angle turn. It's like it'll go right off the tracks and get in a wreck. And so know that about yourself also. Make a friend of your mind, make a friend of your body, be kind and respectful to both of them, right? Treat them well, and be patient. Understand that you've got a difficult situation, but you're covered by grace. So the goal has already been attained. So don't fret about that. That's a promise of the divine. So enjoy the goal, enjoy the assumption that God is with you. Enjoy the assumption, because it's an assumption of the reality, but you just maybe in the beginning don't have that sense of reality, of it being real. God still seems imaginary. It still seems like practice, and still seems like something you're just kind of, rotely doing. But in time, that imagination will manifest as real. You will see the reality of that idea.
So, Swamiji, how do you make mind your friend?
By being kind to it, not getting frustrated with it, not getting angry with yourself, not letting it get into a bad mood. You keep a positive spirit toward yourself. When you're talking to yourself inside, when the mind says that you want that 9th piece of cake, you don't say, "Oh, look, you fat idiot, stop it. You've ruined my life." Don't take that approach. Just be very gentle with yourself and say, that's not really what you want.
I think repeating the name of God all the time too. If you realize that the ego is just writing stories and you don't have to pay attention to them and you just replace that with the name of God, then, your mind will become your friend. And also, if you just realize
Most,
everything is mind. So, you know, but one thing I wanted to ask how you dealt with this, Swami, is
uh-huh.
so I was having a lot of problem with the ego, and I had to sit and think about it. I'm like, well, whose will is this? Because it's not my will to do these things. My will is to, be the greatest bhakti saint ever, or something like that, aspire to advance in your practice and be all the things, you want to be in that direction, but yet you can't stop these tragic displays of ego that are embarrassing and you think, well, it's not my will. And then you think, well, then it has to be mother's will. But then I realize I think it's just the samskaras dragging me along.
Yeah, that's mostly what it is. But your suggestion about the name of God, absolutely right. You get in a lot less trouble if the mind is naming God, constantly, and the attention is on the divine presence within constantly. That will discourage things from getting a foothold at all in your thinking. But if you've got an attachment that's going on that you can't, that's not working for, it's pulling your mind away. Um, then you have to deal with the mind in a different way. You still give it the mantra. You still are working on that, but you have to do some discernment too. You have to start looking and saying, is that really what you want? Think about the last time you had that. How long did the pleasure last? Are you happy with, I always use cake because it's an easy thing to talk about without offending someone. But, that piece of cake, you sit there and you talk to the mind. It's like, is that really what you want? Because if it's really what you want, you can have it. There's no problem with whether you have it or not. But is it really what you want? What are you looking for, at this moment? And because the last time you did this, you weren't happy that you did it. You were down the next day about it. You're up to 485 pounds, and it might not be a good idea to keep going on that trajectory. You coach yourself through in a positive way. You don't get harsh. You don't make ultimatums. When that level of renunciation, when it's time for that renunciation, then yes, that renunciation comes when you know the truth of it, and you're stuck in a position where you seem to constantly being forced into it anyway. That's when that good, strong renunciation is necessary. You've done the discernment. You already know this isn't what you want. You know that this is just the train of samskaras pushing you in that direction. And so at that point, you can stand up and say, no, that's enough. And so you can draw that line like that. But until you get to that level of knowing about the nature of your desires and where you're at, then treat your mind like your toddler. Be kind, be gentle, but be firm and consistent is the thing, right? And grow through it. So he says one can't renounce by a mere wish. There is prarabdha karma, inherited tendencies and the like. Your prarabdha karma is the things that followed you from your previous birth. Old ideas that could be thousands of years old that you're not even aware of within yourself. So there's prarabdha karma, that's inherited tendencies and the like. Once a yogi said to a king, live with me in the forest and think of God. The king replied, that I cannot very well do. I could live with you, but I still have the desire for enjoyment. If I live in the forest, perhaps I shall create a kingdom even there. I still have desires. Natabar Panja used to look upon his cows in his garden during his boyhood. He had many desires. Hence, he established a castor oil factory and earned a great deal of money. He has a prosperous castor oil business in Alambazar. There is one sect that prescribes spiritual discipline in company with women. I was once taken to the women belonging to the Kartabhaja sect. They all sat around me. I addressed them as mother. At that, they whispered among themselves, oh, he's still a pravartaka. He doesn't know the way. meaning, oh, he still sees us as women and still sees us as different from himself, as a desire. So they're making that mistake because he had a different practice. He belonged to a different path. Oh, he's still a Pravartika and he doesn't know the way. According to that sect, the Pravartika is the beginner. Then comes the Sadhaka, the struggling aspirate. And last of all, the Siddha of the Siddha, the supremely perfect. A woman walked over to a Vaishnavachara and sat near him. Asked about it, he answered, she feels just like a young girl. One quickly strays from the religious path by looking on a woman as wife. But to regard her as mother is a pure attitude. Some of the devotees took leave of the master, saying that they were going to visit the temple of Kali and several of the temples. And so we see here, he's just giving us a clue. It's like, look on other people in ways that do not feed your desires. Address everybody as the Divine Mother. Do whatever practices you can. Make up your own rituals, make up your own practices, make up your own ways of doing these things. I remember when I worked for the university, I worked with this woman, Jackie, and she was trying to quit smoking. And so she had this rubber band that she had around her wrist. And every single time that the idea of smoking a cigarette came to her head, she would pull that rubber band out and just give herself a good snap on the wrist from it to kind of give that aversion, to smoking cigarettes, to help her to quit smoking. So be like that, come up with ways of getting yourself to change the way you view the things around you. See God everywhere. That's the bottom line. That's the ultimate truth. It will happen one day anyway, because you will see it, not because you're trying to see it. You'll be like, oh my God, thank you. You're here. You'll see it everywhere. But until then, just keep putting yourself in that position and assuming that position. And in time, you'll get enough evidence to where you don't have to try that position anymore. You know it. You see God. You understand that. And the more you find God in yourself, in the silence of yourself, this egoism, you have to understand that one of the things that Thakur teaches us left and right is that you're not the doer, right? And look at what it is you're proud of, and look at it good and hard, and be very honest about how much did you actually have to do with that, right? I remember one time feeling a little proud about, my singing. I had some people tell me that I sang really nicely, and I felt that little, I'm a good singer, right? Come popping up inside. And then I thought to myself about it. I was like, and what did you have to do with that? I didn't, my voice, I was born with my voice. How proud can I become of my voice? I have no responsibility whatsoever for how my voice is. It is what it is. It's the same thing if you happen to be a good looking person. Good for you. But how much of that responsibility is yours? Absolutely none. So is it not just the most absurd thing in the world to become proud of that? You're proud of your father's wealth. Well, good for you. How much does that have to do with you? Absolutely nothing. And you'll find that way actually with pretty much everything that we become proud of, that when you put that lamp next to it, how much did I really have to do with this? You'll see that, if you're intelligent, if you're accomplished, any of those things, you have to have been given the hardware in order to have become great with it. And chances are you weren't even the one that had anything to do with getting that hardware, getting that initial ability, right? So your intelligence, your looks, your talents, all these things that we easily become proud of, egoistic about, with some simple thinking, just some simple paying attention, they'll take care of themselves, right? Because it's not your nature to get yourself involved in unhelpful things. It's your nature to alleviate suffering. It's your nature to love and to nurture and to care and to give, constantly. That's who you are. And so that's why awareness is enough for taking care of our faults. It's not something that we have to do. We're not building a person. We're trying to return to what we are, something that already exists within us, that image of God that we have really forgotten because it's unchanging and it's steady. So the mind has blocked it out as white noise. So you don't feel your inner bliss. You don't know your inner wisdom. You don't have a sense of your nature because you've been living in mind, and the constant flutter and sparkle of the changing world has distracted you. And so now that time is finished. Mother has obviously called you. We're sitting here talking about spiritual things together. So all of us have been bitten by the cobra, and it's just a matter of time. All right, let's stop the